There we are. So we are now live. And do we have a? Oh yes, we have a circle.
Dude, it cracks me up every time you do that. You're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Anyway, listen, welcome back to Reality NSFW on the Circle Chat here. I'm Elaine Stott from season 39 of Survivor. And as always, my partner in crime, Professor Tim Wilson. And today we got Vithun, the man, the myth, the legend in the building. And we were just talking a little bit backstage. I think Vithun looks absolutely fantabulous with that new hairstyle. I'm loving it. But thanks for coming on with us. We really do appreciate you being here. Talking everything circle. Yeah. I was telling you before, we get a little sidetracked when it comes to things. Tim's great little thing he does is he takes one thing and he runs with it for like 30 minutes. So if we happen not to talk about circle, don't get too upset with us. That's just how we roll here. So I don't know. Tim gets on these tangents where he just goes crazy and talks about everything under the sun. But I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
So suddenly I feel castigated. I feel like I feel like the naughty boy in the school. But you know that just brings me Vithun. One of the things I love about your performance, but I think really about your life, is you bring character to mathematics. You are a mathematician, aren't you?
I guess. Well, I mean, I work in finance now, so yeah, in that sense, yes. But at university, I actually studied geography with economics, so I guess that is kind of mathsy, but to some extent, I wouldn't say maths wasn't like my major subject at uni.
Really?
Well,
because
I couldn't.
I see. I sort of see you as doing maths, further maths, and
well, I actually
econometrics.
At A level, I did maths, further maths, economics, and geography.
Yeah, you see.
I ended up dropping further maths at AS just because I feel like with further maths and maths at university, I felt like maths becomes way more about proofs.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like the maths I was better at was more maths as in like actual just calculating something as opposed to proving why something is that.
Yes, absolutely. But you brought maths into the circle. I mean, we actually saw it on your first day with you with the calculator. I mean, you know, you can't get any more iconic than that, and unless you had one of those bead things. What are they called?
An abacus.
An abacus. That's it. An abacus.
So I don't even know what that is. I don't
abacus.
know what that is.
Oh, an abacus is one of those things with little balls, and you move them across the.
Okay. I don't think we have them in the country, but okay, I take your word for it.
I mean, there's no use for them now that calculators exist. So
okay,
yeah, it was basically a way of like doing sums before calculators were there, kind of. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I got you now. I get it a little bit, but you know, math's not my subject. I can count my money, and that's all I need to know. So I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, I wish that I'd discovered a passion for maths when I was younger, and I didn't. I got sort of turned off maths because the teachers were trying to make it simple, and I don't like simplicity. I like complexity, and you know, that's me. Also, I like to know what the result is before I have to go through the whole process of trying to find out why. So
he does things backwards, basically, is what he's telling me.
No, I think a lot of people do that, especially with especially when people like revise for like numerical type exams. I think a common tactic is often to like look at the answer and like see if you can get to that answer, kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's exactly what he does. That's exactly what he does.
Yeah. So Tim was actually saying to me before that he does like the conclusion and then before the evidence. We were talking about like us knowing twists in the circle before they became apparent to us and predicting them.
You see, what was extraordinary about watching you in the circle, if I may be so bold as to sort of psychoanalyze you on air, is that you came in as this sort of statistics whiz kid, but you showed the most intense emotional sort of maturity and an emotional connection that we've actually seen in the circle so far. you are the person who holds the emotional moment. And I wrote to you when you came out. You were the heart of the circle. And I think
your vulnerability was what really drew me to you. Like I felt every tear that ran down your face, brother. I felt it. I'm a feels kind of person, you know what I mean? And just seeing you sit on the couch and share your heart, like it really touched me. And I just have to say, like, I just want to hug your neck. You know what I mean? I just want to hug your neck. I thought you was awesome. I did think you got the shaft a little bit. I thought you was done a little dirty, but that's the circle. So it's like, how can you really be mad about it? You know what I mean? But I really enjoyed you on TV for sure.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I don't think it's weird because I think a lot of people are feeling worse about what happened than I did. But I guess that's just because I knew it was going to happen. It was more just an issue of, I just felt like I didn't have the things I needed to avoid it happening.
Right.
But I could see it happening, but I felt like I felt like I wasn't having control of the conversation, and I felt like I wasn't having control over how many chats I had in order to build other friendships. And eventually I think that led to my downfall.
Your chats diminished actually
I made a whole graph for my own closure.
Of course you did. Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't imagining things, because there was quite a tough period across episodes 11 and 12, and I think the only chat that was shown on that episode was my chat with across those two episodes was my chat with Pippa, and the reason for that was because that was the only chat I had across those 2 days.
Really?
So I didn't have any other chats.
Yes. Well, you see, you had been paired off with Billy earlier, so Billy had gone, and then really your story was sort of lost.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of difference between, I guess, a game and a TV show, because there was no kind of person to replace the narrative that me and Billy had built up. And so for the kind of producers, I think I probably got a bit lost in the shuffle because there was no kind of place to put my character.
Yep.
So when you're on there, because I never played the game. So do you guys you don't control like who you get to talk to? Because I always told Tim, I was like, yo, I would talk to everybody all day long. I would keep checking in. Like you're not allowed to do that, right? Like that's not how it works.
Yeah, it's weird because I think I don't know if this is a practical way of doing it, but the way I always imagined would be quite a fair way of doing the chats is that because on the first day we just, like in our series anyway, I think in Tim's series they did a ratings just based on the profiles, but with us we'd had a group chat and then we did our ratings straight away. So I would have thought what would have been a good strategy or a fair way to carry it out is, because everyone had an equal chance to set up their profile and speak in the group chat, I thought maybe whoever comes first on that ratings gets first choice on picking the 2 people they want to speak to the next day. And then we go down the ranking, but each person's capped at like having 2 or 3 chats a day. So say if the first 3 people pick me to speak to, then whoever came fourth can't also pick me. They'd have to pick 2 other people because then I feel like it makes the ratings kind of matter more, and I think it's just a fair way to carry it out, and it makes it
but
more...
that's not how they do it. They don't do it like that.
Oh no, the way all that happens with us is all we say is like before we go to bed and when we wake up in the morning, kind of we talk about who we'd like to speak to and stuff, but the actual decision is up to their discretion.
That's not really, that's playing God basically.
Well,
that's not really fair though, like
no, God
fair.
God isn't very fair, Elaine, but God is wise, and in the pilot, I know from talking to Jan, who was in the pilot, and Dan, who was in the pilot, they were able to talk to anybody. But if you think about it, if that happens, then production has literally got to sit for 24 hours a day watching all these conversations, then try to create a story from that makes sense to the viewer.
Well, now that's what we do on Survivor. I mean, we film 24/7, and they literally they film every conversation, every single thing you do. They film 24/7, and they rotate crews out. You know what I mean, to make that possible. And then they have a production that sits down and views every single piece of footage they have, and then they filter through that. But honestly, I think that's what makes a better show.
Well, so what you're saying is the circle production is a bit lazy.
They're lazy. Yes, I am saying it. They're lazy.
Elaine, this is why I get into
creative
trouble.
direction.
It's by association. But this is
That's
gone.
true.
You know, I think it's like, because I think, well, I've never watched Survivor, but I assume from the way you're describing it, it seems like you're describing it as kind of like a game that's televised.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the way I kind of see The Circle is more a TV show about a game.
Well, we film like 6 months before it airs, so they have an allotted time to you know what I mean, to filter through all the footage and create the storylines they want to create. But what I was saying, compared to The Circle, is like even the most insignificant combos, like they build the strongest bonds sometimes. And if you miss out on that, then you don't get the backstory to it. Whereas like in The Circle, if we don't see all the chats you're having and you're not relevant to the game, then why would they show your chats anyway? It's just like, but I think it's smarter. I really think it's smarter to do it the way the Survivor does it. You film around the clock, and then you go back and you filter through, and if you have all the info, you have an idea of where you want to go. It just, to me, it would make it better. I guess from the outside looking in, I think, one, it cheats the competitors that are actually participating in The Circle by not doing that. Like with you, Vithun, like you didn't have the opportunity to have the combos that you needed to have to save yourself. Well, that's not really a competition. That's like a slaughtering. You know what I mean? Like you were sent out to the slaughter, son. Like I don't think it's very fair. I don't think The Circle's ever going to call me, so I can talk about them if I want to. So
Well, let's skew the conversation.
Okay.
Because we've got to remember that The Circle was originally designed to be going out almost live. So you've got to sort of concertina all this stuff. Now, Vithun, I've got to ask you the first question. Why did you enter? Why did you apply?
So, I mean, I'd always been a big fan of reality TV shows generally, like ever since I was a child. Because I even like remember like a childhood memory where I went into the living room just watching my parents like watch Big Brother, and I just sit there watching it. But obviously, I didn't know all the adulty stuff that was going on. But even then, I just remember all the drama and like chaos going on, and I thought, oh, I want to be in the midst of that. As I've got older, I noticed that I gradually started like enjoying watching the shows less. And I think I'd got to that stage where I got like tired of watching them and wanted to do it instead. And then I hadn't actually watched The Circle before applying, but I was at like a university reunion thing, and one of my friends from like the university tennis club, he just asked, he knew I was a big fan of reality TV, so he asked me, have you watched The Circle? And then I had said I hadn't. But he said he thought I'd be good on it, and that someone from my uni actually went on your series. Basayo was actually, who played as Josh, was actually.
Oh yes, absolutely. Basayo. Yeah.
So he mentioned that she'd been on, and then he thought I'd be good at it.
And Vithun, you were both involved in student union or something, weren't you?
I wasn't. She was.
She was. I know. She was head of. She was like the queen.
I did not have any major.
Or was it in your halls of residence or something? You were
I was a peer supporter. Yeah, for my
hall. Peer supporter. Yeah.
But I mean, the advantage of that was that basically, if you were a peer supporter, you'd get allocated a room in halls. So.
Oh really?
So like usually they give like preference to first years, right? But because you can apply to be a peer supporter after first year, and so then I got given a room for second year and third year, and because my
played it smart,
because my halls were catered, I didn't have to worry about food or having to find a place.
Yeah.
So was this a statistical decision as well?
Yeah, I was so strategic because even in third year, basically what happened is, you're not guaranteed the hall you choose. All you're guaranteed is a room in a hall. Like that in the contract, that's all they say, is like you're guaranteed a room in the hall. But I was quite sneaky, so I there was basically a staff changeover from second year to third year on who ran the scheme. So I just emailed the new person going, oh, I haven't been allocated my room in this hall yet. And I'm like, as if I was like meant to get it. And then they gave me the room, and then all the other people who were in my hall that wanted to stay in the hall, they got sent to like way more expensive halls.
See, he was ahead of the game. He was smart. He was smart. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's what made you good on the circle, though, because you was so smart.
You were very smart. No, look, I've not had a chance to. I haven't seen all of my season, but presumably, so after you applied, did you then watch my season or the first season?
Yeah, because they were saying that in order to kind of get through the interview stages, it would, because obviously there were quite a few stages it's a very long process.
It wasn't for me, by the way.
Okay. Well, for me, like since my first application, in terms of time anyway, it's probably been over a year now since when I first submitted my first application to at the present day. Because we all, I think a lot of us would have applied during lockdown 1. So that's when I applied anyway. And then the casting team were like, they think it would be good if I got knowledge of the show because I'm going to get interviewed about my interest and stuff. So I watched your series, and that was the only series I watched.
Right. So you've fallen into my trap, Vithun. So you watched my series. Can you tell me, did the ratings work out correctly statistically?
What do you mean by correctly?
Was it legitimate? Was it true?
Yeah, I believe so.
You believe so? Right, okay. Because I've always had some doubt about that.
No, so the way I see it is, I don't have any. I know some people claim that the ratings might be fudged, but I definitely do not think that at all.
I'm so pleased to hear this.
I think what happens is, well, Elaine was alluding to, the chats will influence how the ratings end up. So whilst there's no impact, they're not going to tell you to rate anyone in a certain place, and the ratings aren't like adjusted, but obviously the conditions that lead up to the ratings are going to kind of result in a certain way. So that's what I'd say about that situation. But anyway, so from your series, I kind of analyzed the statistics of it, and then I also analyzed the stats from the US first series. I didn't watch it, but I just looked at the stats from the first episodes, like in terms of where people rated, because generally where people rated on the first rating was very in line with statistics I'd seen from other reality shows. Because for my application anyway, I actually mentioned some stats from Strictly Come Dancing as the basis for my application.
Really?
Yeah, because there was actually an article I referenced this article in the Guardian. It was like published about 2016, and it was talking about celebrities on Strictly Come Dancing, and it said that if you controlled for scores, so like if you assumed all scores were the same, women were 66% more likely to be in the bottom 2. Ethnic minorities, it went up to 71%, and if you were both black and female, it went up to 83%. So actually in my application, I initially applied to go on as a white man, and I used that as my basis because I was like, if statistically in like the reality TV entertainment industry, white men are doing better in the public vote, like why would I not want to be part of that demographic? So that I actually used some kind of evidence for my basis of why I wanted to do that. But ironically, I think in that same article, it mentions that they didn't find a similar pattern in the American series Dancing with the Stars or the Australian series. They only seem to find this kind of pattern, this demographic pattern in the UK series.
Oh my goodness! So we really are racist. I'm horrified. I'm horrified. You see, I thought when you came in, and you until yesterday, I would have said you've got 3 very strong Asian performers, and now we've got 4. We've got Shabazz as well.
Yeah.
It's such a it's such a major statement, don't you think?
Yeah, I think what's so great about it as well is that all 4 of us have 4 different countries of origin.
Oh God, yes. So where is Shabazz from?
He's Pakistani.
Yes. So Shabazz is Pakistani. I'm
Sri Lankan.
Sri Lankan.
Manrika's Indian, and Hashu's Bangladeshi. So.
But your name isn't. Do you actually have a middle name which goes on forever?
No. But
all right.
I feel like my surname's quite long though.
I know so many people from Sri Lanka, and you just think, oh my god. Some of them. I have to take a really big breath before I greet you. Gosh, so then Sri Lanka is such a wonderful country.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I said in my press chat, that that I wanted to do if I'd won was like take my family back there, just because we were planning to go there had it not been for COVID.
Yeah.
Just because it would have been my mum's 50th birthday, and the last time we went was for her 40th. So that was it. We would have gone had it not been for COVID and stuff. So my plan was that I would go like after
Take
COVID with the money kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I said I'd call it the I told you so trip, just because my parents didn't have any faith in me on doing the show at all.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Because you've got also in Sri Lanka, you've got this extraordinary mix of religions and cultures.
Yeah.
So it's a very confused country in some ways, I think, but very exciting. Am I right? Dr. Dolittle was filmed in Sri Lanka. I'm not sure. I probably trust your.
I always just go with it.
I really think it was a 1967 Dr. Dolittle. You know, how do you do to the world of Dr. Dolittle? With Rex Harrison, lots of singing, although he doesn't sing. But there we are. Anyway, so you've got three things that you can judge, that you can apply your maths to in the circle. You've got the ratings, you've got people's popularity, so that would be the ratings, wouldn't it? And then you got how many chats somebody has.
Yeah, so those were so that was how. Actually, I want to know was there a third thing then, or were those the?
I'm sure I had a third thing.
Because those were the only things I took into account. So maybe I've missed something.
Maybe that's why you got voted out. I mean, I don't know.
Did you have a sense of threat? That was really what I think I'm coming to. Did you have a sense of foreboding? Did you? Because I certainly did. I thought
seeing people as a threat. So yes, but that did come into my ratings, but it wasn't part of my initial calculations. So right. I'll give an example. So the way I did my ratings generally was I'd average out everyone's average rating from across the series so far. And then I'd rank them relative on how close they're kind of. I called it like a circle popularity index, but I basically measured it on how close their index was to mine, because if you think about it, you're competing with the people that are closest to you. So I felt like I could rate people that were either way ahead of me or way behind me higher, because they weren't in direct competition with me.
I'm so pleased you're not talking about catfish here. You've not mentioned it once.
No, I didn't. So that was actually one of the reasons that set me off crying when I met Andy, because I actually thought they actually didn't show that bit, but I really thought he was a catfish the whole time.
Really?
There was actually one. I think there were, because the first chat they showed us of was day 5, but we actually had a chat on day 3, and I remember like literally showing off about how he was like, I was pretending to believe he was a catfish, because he would say stuff like, his son's birthday's on Sunday or something. I was like, oh, how convenient that his son's birthday's on Sunday. I thought he was like, I literally thought he was like a.
You thought he's full of shit. You thought he's full of shit.
Because like I thought they already did like the young mother with a kid, so I thought this was like the young father with a kid, and I thought like I was like, oh, he clearly. I actually predicted that he was going to be someone that resembled James, like Sammy from last year.
I see.
And so when I was speaking to him and he was saying this like kid thing, I would reply going like, oh, you're doing so well, I'm sure you miss him and stuff. But I was thinking, he's playing into my hands. He obviously is a catfish. And
so go ahead, Tim.
Oh, no. Go on, Elaine.
Well, I was just going to say, was you relieved to see that he was who he said he was? And so that was where the emotion come from, is like, yo, I really invested in this guy and he's actually real. Is that what it was?
I think it was that. And I think the word that, I think it was when he said mate, he said something like, oh, mate. And then I think just hearing him call me his mate, I think that's what set me off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought it was beautiful, man. I thought that was so cool that you actually went to meet him.
It was a lovely moment.
Corner. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. But also, I think Andy is almost in everybody's corner. He's such a lovely man.
But he's in trouble
I think that's
now.
Because he's not playing. I think that's because he's not playing the game at all.
No.
Yeah, he's the one person that's purely there for the experience. Whereas it's weird because I feel like when I went on, I didn't think about the experience at all. But when I think about what I've taken away from it, it's much more the experience side than the game side. All the memories are like things that like what Tim you say, what the circle should be about. It for me, those things are the things I've gained, like the friendships or like confidence, such as like skills. It's actually.
Did you get that sense of of a bond with other people that you couldn't see while you were in the circle. Did you get that sense?
You mean with other players?
Yes.
I would say that given the way the chats had been done, I had spoken to Andy so much when I'd got blocked. I'd spoken to Andy so much more than any other player that had Andy not been there, I don't know who I would have gone to see. Because the way I did my, so this actually ties into my ratings as well. So that first part was the average popularity, and then the second part was the chats. And I would like apportion the chat. So say if you have a group chat with 2 other people, I would count that as like 0.5 chats with each person, because they're each getting half my attention on average. And then I total up all this number, and then I'd rank that, and then I'd do a combined rank with the ratings and the chats, and then that combined rank would form the ratings. So that would happen. So that's how I would do it for a normal rating. When it's a rating where the new people join for the first time, like, and the new people can be rated for the first time. So for example, when who was it? Dorothy and Felix could be rated, or when Femi and Pippa could be rated. That one was done purely on average popularity. So the most popular people at the top and the least popular people at the bottom. The reason for that is that when you're there, I noticed that when the new people can be rated for the first time, they don't put a slide where they say the top 2 will be influencers. And the reason is because if those bottom 2 people finish at the bottom, well, I don't have proof of this. This is my theory, so don't take this word for word. But
I'm taking it word for word. I'm hanging on every word you say.
My theory is that if those people do finish the bottom 2, the producers will double block them and turn them into a new character, like they did with Joyce. So the reason, so that was why. So on the day,
you weren't surprised to see Pippa and Joey turned into
no, because if anything,
Tim,
I was trying to bring that storyline 2 days forward so that I could still be there. because on camera it looks like when I rate Manrika 3rd, it looks like I'm really trusting of her and rating her 3rd. But the reality was, I felt as if like my bonds had either been broken, or I'd had such few chats with people that I realized that whoever was going to be influencer, unless it was Andy, I feel like the only people that would have saved me would have been Andy and Pippa, but Pippa was never going to be influencer, and Felix if he was with Andy maybe, but like Felix, but if Felix was with Manrika like he was Saeed or Dorothy, I think they would have all convinced him to block me.
Well, you see, if Felix would have given the game away if he'd resisted Manrika, I'm afraid.
Exactly, yeah. Because apparently, I think what actually happened was Natalia was saying that she didn't really want to get rid of me, but Manrika kept pushing for it, and then obviously she couldn't. That if she had gone against Manrika, that would have broken their bond.
Absolutely, that would have been catastrophe for her performance.
But in that in that rating, the only reason why it was how it was I was doing it based on average popularity, because I thought if there's some way I can get 6th and Pippa and Femi come 7th and 8th, then they'll double block them, because they'll think that I might not actually go home, and that they'll double block them and turn them into a new character.
I see. Yeah. Well, you see, I think production really wanted to get Felix and Dorothy
to block each other,
into that room together. So they block each other, they hate each other, and then let's see what sort of spikes fly when they've got to live with each other. I think that was probably the original plan.
You think they wanted them to block each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And then
I almost feel like they did that twist because they knew they wouldn't block each other.
Really?
Because I think had the influencers been like Andy and Manrika, they wouldn't have done such a twist. Because I think the reason why they could let Femi and Pippa recreate themselves was because they'd only been there 6 days each. So people hadn't felt a strong relationship to their character, like from a viewer's perspective anyway, because they'd only been there not too long of a time. So them recreating there was nothing to kind of compare it on, because say if Felix and Dorothy had lost their characters and been recreated, people would be comparing it to a time of knowing them for a long time. So it'd be quite hard for their new character to match up to the character they knew them as. Whereas with Pippa and Femi, they've only been known for six days each, given that if they do make it to the end, it's only like 5 more days, I think, that if their character will only have to be there for 5 days to make the end. That's quite similar to the characters we had before. So it's more like a level comparison.
What would have happened?
Established them as.
What would have happened if one of them blocked and the other didn't? Do you think that?
They would have just got the person that was still there to block one more person.
Yes.
That's what I think they would have done.
Yes.
No, I'm saying, do you think they still would have done the twist of putting say Dorothy blocked Felix, and do you think they would have took Felix, put him in a room, and then whoever Dorothy blocked, put them, and then it'd been Felix and whoever? Do you think they would have still done that?
I think potentially, but I feel like the twist came into play because they were quite confident that
of the outcome.
Yeah, because even with me, like with my the reason I knew I was getting blocked the day I got blocked. Like I had my bare outfit laid out on my bed before the position came. Like that's how confident I was. Like I was just ready to meet Andy.
We're going to talk about your outfits in a minute.
So I was already ready for that. And whereas I think if they had said it was a double, I think the energy when we were there, the energy was that Pippa and Femi were quite easy to pick off as a two, because like you could just use the excuse as we form bonds with everyone else, like sorry kind of thing. So I feel like they were quite confident that those two would get picked off. So that's why they did that twist.
Yeah. I see.
I think it would have been huge though if they would have actually went after somebody. Like if they would have went after, which Felix wouldn't have done it, but if they would have went after like Manrika because she's playing so well, or Saeed, like I think they should have took out a huge target. I think that would have been a lot better for themselves. Yeah,
but in terms of story playing, in terms of storytelling, Manrika really is essential to the plot, and she's now been cast as
that's where you two are. These are the two opinions, because Elaine's coming from the concept of a game and you're coming from the concept of because her experience is from that survivor
from a real game. Yes, exactly.
From you being on the circle, you see that kind of narrative that we need that to entertain the audience aspect.
Right.
Yes, I think I see the circle, and I see most reality shows now. I've done a year of studying reality shows, and I see them all. Even I'm afraid, Survivor. I see them as creating drama. You get the right cast together, and then you put them in a situation. There's bound to be a few fireworks.
And that's what I guess that's what I expected when I went on. I really assumed that. I just thought it was all in the editing. I really assumed that for the majority of the time people were just sitting on their couch in the circle, but the editing had the ability to make that into a dramatic 45 minutes, an hour television. And I think one of the things I underestimated was the performative aspect. Just because I think when I was there, I acted as if the cameras weren't it's not even acted. I just didn't even think about the cameras being there. I literally just went on.
You didn't play to the audience.
I feel like I was very not viewer friendly because I didn't even.
You were very viewer friendly.
I didn't even. I
very viewer friendly because you see when everybody's leaping around like as if the ants have been released into into the room. And everybody was. I mean, some people were jumping on the furniture. It was disturbing. And then every time you come back. There, my center of serenity, Vithun, and now you've gone. The only one who's actually playing that is Natalia.
Yeah,
and you just long for those moments when people have stopped leaping around. Actually, Andy has stopped leaping. He's not leaping so much.
I think he's in a different mindset, say now, than he was a few days ago because of the games that's been played. I think his frame of mind has changed a little bit. I don't know if he's more into his head than he was before because of the games or what, but you can see a slight change in him, I think.
Vithun, various people have been sending me messages, so this is the appropriate point to ask you. So you know how much you've warmed us with your performance, whether you intended to or not. Now, there's a person called
that because I didn't. I feel like the fact that I didn't intend to might have been what.
It's the most compelling thing to do. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got this question from a person called Alex, who asks, "Is there a significant other in your life?"
Oh, no, there isn't at the moment. No. And if anything, in my I think I think we did in our press chat. There was actually a question about flirting. I think, and then I said something like, "Oh, they were like, would you flirt in the circle?" And I was like, "Not." I was like, I probably wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to flirt just because it's not one of my strengths. And I felt like one of the things I knew in the circle was like my strengths and weaknesses. And that was so I was like, there's no point me trying to flirt with people because it's not realistic.
That would have been interesting though. That really would have.
And in a way, and actually one of the things I actually wrote on my application, or maybe I didn't write. No, actually, I think I just said it in an interview. In one of my application interviews was that one of the reasons why it would be good to be myself is because statistically I'm like the least desirable demographic, because on I don't know which date. There was like a YouTube video, and I forgot what dating site it was. But on one of like these dating sites, they compared like different ethnicities, and for South Asian men, only 1 in 4.8 messages they sent would get a response back,
Really?
and it was the lowest of any demographic, like male or female.
Wow.
Oh, I think this is so foolish of the rest of the world.
But I think a big reason for that is more like the media, though, because if you think about it, I feel like in Western media anyway, the South Asian guy is kind of made out to be basically like the character I was in a way, like the whole like nerd archetype. So when you're always painted as that, you're not painted as someone that could be desired, are you? You're always painted. And I actually watched. It was funny. I actually watched a video by an interview by the actor Riz Ahmed.
Oh yes.
About a month after the filming for this series finished, and he actually spoke about this, and he said for like brown men, like roles are binary. Like you're either the kind of nerd that can't get the girl, or you're like the terrorist. And I thought about
it's so mistaken of the world.
I thought about it in terms of the circle, and obviously I was the nerd, and obviously there was no terrorist, but Saeed was like very much, his character was very much the immigrant, so it was very much built upon like otherism and him trying to fit into a new society type thing. So I saw like both ends of this kind of the show encapsulated both ends of this kind of spectrum in the show, whereas, and I think that's probably, I don't know Shabaz's reasons for going as Alice, but perhaps a reason for him going for like a totally different demographic is maybe to escape those kind of.
I must say, I think Shabaz's character is phenomenal. I mean, his real character, the Alice, I haven't quite got my head around that, but I just think he exudes charisma. And I'm so sorry he's coming in so late.
I think he was in the running to actually be on your series as well, if I'm correct.
Was he really?
I've heard. I think Tally definitely was. Yeah, and I think I've
heard stories. Tally even got into our block of flats, and something went wrong.
Yeah, we won't speak about that.
Yeah, we won't speak about that. But I keep my ear to the ground. Now, let me ask you another one of these questions, because I've got a number of them, and we're going to finish our interview without going through them. And I did promise I would ask questions. So there's a person called Benio. Now, are you mathematically primed for this one? Who says?
I will probably not.
who says? I think it's a he, but anyway, he loves maths, and then says, which number is the same in degrees Celsius and Fahrenheit, and why?
Oh, I don't know this.
I just thought, what an...
Unless it's zero. But
I think 0 Fahrenheit is different to 0 degrees in Celsius, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I have no idea then. This is
no idea.
Me neither, but you know, we're all going to run off after this and try and check.
Yeah.
I
would have said, I think the only reason why I would say 0 is because I assume isn't Fahrenheit on the Fahrenheit numbers just always more extreme than the Celsius.
Yes, but I think so 0 is freezing, and I think freezing in Fahrenheit is not 0.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But if there were lots of people in the chat, somebody would be bound to come up and say, "Oh, it's blah 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 blah." But I feel there's not enough people in the chat at the moment to be able to come to our rescue. Maybe someone will come to the rescue in a minute. But in the meantime, you were extremely good. Although you weren't really focused on. I think you assumed everybody was a catfish, by the way, but you were extremely good in calling out Yolanda as the clone. Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing that the assassination was going on. Incidentally, I don't think that Gemma James was the assassin. I think Gemma James was assassinated, but that's another matter.
Okay. No, the thing is with that one, I didn't know the assassin task was going on, but I remember in that game, what I thought was going to happen was the loser of that game got blocked instantly. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Because you worked out there was an odd number.
Yeah, I was like, why are two? And I was saying this to my producer at the time, and I was getting that's why in that game I was so moody, and you can just see how moody I was.
You were thinking, I'm off. I was like, if no one's picking me, then I'm literally going to leave this instant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So
after the first day, actually, because I remember when I was going on, like, leaving home to go into hiding and stuff, I remember I told my mum, like, don't have high hopes for me, because I didn't like having the pressure and expectation. And her response was like, oh, are you going to go out on the first day? And I was like, no, because the first blocking only happens on day 2, because that was what happened in your series.
No, I think the first blocking actually happened on the evening when we arrived in the.
It was only shown in episode 2 for us.
Well, yeah, but you see, they stretched out to 2 episodes, but we had this mammoth recording on that first day.
I don't think it could have been, unless they changed the order of stuff, because I remember what happened was because I remember a scene where you woke up in the morning, a second morning, and I just remember Georgina's message going, remember I said I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Can we change that bit? And then
that may be true.
I remember Sammy laughing, and that was like after you guys had slept on something. So
that's right. We did the ranking, and then the following day there was the blocking.
Yeah. So your blocking only happened day 2, whereas so I just assumed, oh, things keep consistent, that will happen. So after that blocking that happened on the first day, I was just ready to, like, I was always prepared for there to be twists at any point.
Yeah.
To go. Because I remember even when that rating came up, I remember my producer, because obviously I was just like hoping not to come last and stuff. So my producer was like, "You've done so well, you come joint 4th." And then suddenly there was an alert, and then I remember my producer going, "How would you feel if you were out now?" And I just remember it's just like the highs and lows, I think, were really hard to deal with.
Yeah, they're incredibly hard. They got me crying over Nigel Farage or Brexit
someone
or something.
said the answer about the
what is
the
it?
Fahrenheit thing is apparently it's -40.
How spectacular is that? We can always rely. We can always rely
Google.
on our. Well, I was thinking on our fans. Really, it's so much. It's so much nicer to personalize Google.
Well, we can ask. It was Anthony Eros who's put that comment in. So
how splendid! Splendid! I have no idea why it's -40 though. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. No. Yeah. How? What was the thing? I've got another question here now. Yeah, I just assumed that you and Pippa hit it off because Pippa is really has a legal mind, which is mathematics in practice, isn't it?
That's what people, because even when people saw that I'd gone quiet, they were and the funny thing is I hadn't actually gone quiet in those scenes. Those scenes were just like my chats just weren't the ones that made the edit, because I think because I think people were saying I went quiet like after episode 9 and 10, but because my only chat that got on was a chat with Felix when I was in the hot tub. But I actually had a few chats there, but I just think they weren't very impactful for the storyline. Actually, I would have wanted the chat after my anonymous question with Felix to have come up, because I think the audience would have seen the guilt I felt immediately. Yes. Because I was because actually after that whole scenario, I was like almost in tears. And I had to it
was very difficult. You know, I remember on the parallel chat that I had like that. You know, they gave me I put out a pile of rather bland assertions, and then, you know, I was goaded. You've got to say something else. I can't remember what I said, but what they wanted was drama, and what they wanted was you know, they wanted to put shadow on my character. And they were determined to do it. You know, I was amazed I survived.
It's weird because I think it's something that I feel like I'm not sure if I could have prepared for it even if I knew about it. Like, I think
no.
Yeah.
You can't, and you never know where that's going to occur. The other thing I remember with the painting thing, there was no point in them saying that I should paint something horrible. I'd already said that the one person I couldn't draw in the circle was Beth, and she wasn't real. That was why I couldn't draw her, and so that was the person they gave me to paint. So I made the best of a bad deal, and I drew 2 pictures of her. But if they'd asked me to draw her as a snake, I probably wouldn't have done it, because I think they were more interested in the fact that I was going to do a decent drawing of her. So I got off lucky there. But they had little plans. They want to show light and shade.
I think they want to show different dimensions to one's character. But I think for me, I guess when I was there, I was so focused on the game itself. I couldn't understand this, because all I was thinking was, why would I do things that aren't strategically wise? But I think that's because I was so focused on the game and forgetting that there's an audience that needs to be entertained.
I think you've got to remember that if you don't do anything, they're not going to be able to use you very much.
Yeah.
So if you make sure, you just get up and start doing Greek dancing, they're likely to use that, even if it's not part of the routine of the day. I mean, I would just do this naturally, but I wasn't really focusing on getting screen time. I was focusing on keeping myself entertained.
Do you feel like if you hadn't have came clean with Marika, do you think that she would have still blocked you if you hadn't have done that?
I think she would have, but she wouldn't have. I actually think that would have
gave her an
actually been,
excuse. You gave her an excuse.
Yeah, no, but I think that would have been. She would have still done it, but she would have actually been sad about it, because I think we saw in episode 15 that the remorse wasn't really there when she in that. I mean, I had to actually type out that ending monologue in episode 15 because I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Oh yeah.
But look, even with Manrika, at her most extreme, she is being edited. She is being goaded.
I think everything from that perspective, when I said, I actually spoke to Manrika even before before my episode of blocking happened, and I said to her, I was like, I don't consider it as you and Natalia blocking me. I just see it as the circle blocking me, and you were just a mechanism to get that achieved.
Absolutely.
Because if you think, for me, when I think about it, the events that led up to it were leading to my block. Like me kind of doing the painting of Saeed, that ruined that bond. The question obviously put cracks in, and me just not getting the chats I needed was already, and that was one thing when watching it back, that was probably one of the things that frustrated me the most, when that all acting shocked about me coming 5th and just 1 above Gemma, and then Andy they pan to Andy and he goes, maybe Vithun has been quiet. And I think that frustrated me because in those 2 days, so since Tally's blocking, I didn't have a chat with anyone that could rate, because Pippa and Femi couldn't rate, and so my only chat was with Pippa. So I'm entering a rating without having the chance to speak to anyone who could vote. So I think that kind of frustrated me, because I felt like the narrative was painted a bit as if I'd gone quiet, when really I couldn't really do what was I meant to do, talk to the wall, like. So,
right.
There was only so much I could do.
What did you do when you weren't involved in the game?
I think I was really quiet, and I think actually I think that was just because I can easily entertain myself just sitting by myself and thinking.
Yes.
So I didn't really need to do much in the middle. And I think everyone talks to their kind of producers a lot during the downtime, and they were really nice, and we'd always play quizzes and just talk about, we had quite similar interests in a lot of things. Because obviously I watch a lot of these shows that they've worked on and stuff, so we talk about the shows and any upcoming series and stuff. One of them even gave me a bit of a spoiler about a new judge on one of the shows that hadn't been revealed to the public yet. So it was just general conversations. So I didn't feel like I had to do much to entertain myself during the downtime, but I think that's just because maybe there's so much stuff going on in my brain. I I could just sit down and like reflect on my thoughts.
But towards the end, you started dressing up a lot more.
Yeah. To be fair, we actually had a big dressing up game on day 3, I think the cast really wished that had made the edit, just because we all saw it as when we looked back on the most fun bits. Because I remember when everyone was there for the final, someone from welfare actually posed the question to us, what was your favorite task? And before we could answer, she'd mentioned this task. So we were all surprised that it wasn't part of the edit. So basically what we did was, and also this task literally took the best part of a day. They gave us like huge animal mascot costumes. And we all dressed up. So I was a dog, and each person got like a different animal. Like it was a mixture of farm animals and like zoo animals. So there wasn't any like correlation or anything. And then we all danced in front of our bathroom door, and they filmed us.
That would have been great to see. I would have loved
that. Would have been lovely, but it would have set off a much more positive edit, wouldn't it? It would.
Yeah, and then they edited that all of us dancing into like a 2-minute clip, and then we had to guess which animal was which person.
Mm.
And then I think so that's why I think the winners of the task were Manrika, Original Tally, and Saeed, from my recollection. And that's why I think Tally mentioned that you'll see like a big like giraffe trophy or something in the background, I think in her room or something. I don't know if giraffe was done, but there was like a big animal trophy in her room, I think. And that was that was from winning this game. And so obviously they didn't reveal who was which animal, because I think James was like a rabbit and his rabbit ears were like touching the ceiling. So like if we were told that was Gemma, everyone would have known Gemma wasn't real. So all we got told was just who got the most guesses correct. But we didn't. Okay. But we didn't get told how many they got right. We just got told Manrika, Tally, and Saeed have got the most right. They won. That's all we got told. But I just thought it was. I just thought it was a really fun task. But because there was so much focus on the whole clone storyline at the time, I think they just forgot about it.
Well, that's the thing is like if it doesn't necessarily fit the storyline, they're not, because there was a lot of stuff on Survivor. I've told this to many people. The first few days on the island, whenever I was out there, was probably the funniest times of my life, and none of that made TV. So it just didn't fit the edit and how they wanted the storyline to go. So it cut it all out. But I totally wish I had the reel for all of those times, and I'm sure you do. You feel the same. You wish you could, just relive that over and over. That would be awesome. I'm always down for the positive, the laugh, and I'm always down for that kind of stuff. I think it makes good TV. I don't know why they don't think it makes good TV. I think it makes great TV.
I think a little bit of positive. We want feel good telly.
Yeah, that's me.
I do think that's what people fell in love with The Circle for initially, was that it was kind of like a reality TV show with quite like light entertainment, and it didn't encompass the kind of, as you described, like the loud volume that the other shows had. But I think this series, the business model has definitely gone for more that
cutthroat.
Yeah, but I think that's more because they've seen that that's what the kind of mainstream reality TV is, and I think they want to encapsulate a mainstream audience. So I think, obviously, I don't know what the reason is, but that I assume that might be the reason for that decision.
We could be a little bit more aggressive with that, and we could say, well, there must be lots of producers who used to work on Big Brother. Now what are they doing? But let's go for a...
I mean, but I don't think that's true, because I think they worked on The Circle when it started as well. So I don't feel like they suddenly brought a lot of people on.
Maybe they were just biding their time. Now look. Let's have another question. Beth Rose Dean says, "Are you happy with the way you came across on screen? I think you came across really well. Also, seeing Manrika's decision to block you, what are your thoughts on her?"
Okay, so how I came across on screen, I think on the whole, I'm happy. The only incident that I wasn't really happy was the whole anonymous question thing, just because they didn't show. They only showed me they didn't show like how upset doing that question made me, kind of thing. That was the only thing I'd say. With Manrika blocking. So I feel like, for me, I was fine with everything she did until that ending monologue on episode 15.
Right.
Because
Yes.
the way because I feel like that showed her, because also I don't think it was a tactical decision to block me, because if you think about it, I'd come last and I'd owned up to them. So had they kept me, I'd basically owed them indefinitely.
If she hadn't blocked you, who should she have blocked from your point of view? Let's put you in the influencer room, Vithun.
Well, I think the reason why they always had to make, I think I would have been a nightmare for them to be influencer, because all my kind of ratings blocking type, if I was an influencer type decisions, were based on maths. They wouldn't have been, they had no idea, because I remember like the floor producers asking me like, who would I block? And I said like, it's based on the maths. And they were like, what does the maths say? And I said like, I don't want to calculate it until I actually become an influencer, because that's like arrogant to like plan to be an influencer, but before you are one.
So you are a wild card. They're like, we can't let this happen. He's a wild card.
I never calculated it. So it would have literally been based on whatever my calculations had said. And I think that was almost an issue, because it led to so much unpredictability about a future narrative. So I guess, I don't know what I would have done, because that would have just been based on maths. On what they should have done, I think, well, I don't know, maybe getting rid of me was the best decision, given that how the game, I think
it was a mistake, I must confess.
I think given how the game was going, no one was really bothered, because I wasn't getting many chats, so I'd become like not that close to anyone besides Pippa. Like even Andy only rated me 4th, so I wasn't exactly close. Like no one, I don't think anyone really cared. If this was like a true like game like Survivor, in that context, then I would say they could have. I think, well, I did feel like the catfish were very much protected this year.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because they were such fantastic character, like people.
Well,
like,
some of them
in their apartments.
Yeah.
That they were well protected, because for me, I just found it impossible to believe that either Saeed or Dorothy were going to be real. It was just
And
I think, but Hashu's performance is spectacular.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'm saying that they were protected because of how spectacular they were in their apartments as people, as in their performance, and that obviously that is very entertaining for the viewer. So they're kind of so they were protected in the game in order for that. But what was the original question? I've lost track. No, I remember now. So yes, I think either of them would have been viable choices, because I would have said Saeed, actually, because I think Dorothy was kind of Felix's bestie almost.
Yes.
So I would have said, I think Andy would have caused outrage, and then Pippa and Femi, I think you can't pick one over the other. So I would have said Saeed was probably the best one. I would have thought he would have probably been a good one to get rid of, because everyone knew he was a catfish, and I think the difference is when you block someone and they're a catfish, you don't really get backlash for it.
Right.
Yes, I've never quite worked that one out, but I know that,
because the thing is, I think the way they see it is like from me going on as myself and speaking to a few of the people that were catfish, I think when I was there, I really lived the experience. Like I put my whole life, poured my whole heart out for the show. Whereas when you're going on as a catfish, the game aspect is much more there, because you are, for the most part, obviously it ramps up when storylines get more deep, but for the most part, you're kind of desensitized from the character you're playing. Right. It's very much just being that character rather than your whole. Obviously sometimes you
put your heart on the line,
but for the start anyway, and at least I assume the intention of these people is not to put their heart out, it's to be this character's heart, kind of. So I think they didn't live it as much. So I feel when you block someone that's a catfish, it doesn't feel like you've kind of robbed them of their dream or something. It just feels like, oh, it's jokes, like they got caught out, sense. It's funny. Whereas I think when you block someone that's real, it feels as almost like you've cut someone's dream short. Yeah, exactly. Especially because I was surprised that I thought Billy was quite surprised that he went out so soon, because given that he's only 19, I thought they've got rid of a 19-year-old boy. I always thought when I watched your series, I thought Woody was always very well protected because of his age. And I felt like no one was going to get rid of an 18-year-old boy.
No, I thought it was very cruel. I'm afraid the whole assassin game, I really disliked it.
Yeah, but I did feel like Billy wasn't given much of a chance.
No, and didn't you feel he was sort of growing by episode by episode? It was so lovely to see.
Yeah, I mean, everyone grew episode by episode, but I think I recall that when James was when all that was going on, me and Billy were like the only two kind of like unbeknown to the situation, because Gemma was going around to everyone else doing all this like stirring, and in the meantime I'd never had a chat with, I think Gemma's spoken about how we only had a chat, well, he said on his Instagram live that we only had a chat like day 11. I think it was actually day 9, but it's still quite a long time that we hadn't had a chat for.
I'm amazed you kept such a record of these things. I didn't keep a record at all.
I have a whole graph and table.
I've got lots of drawings of everybody, but I've got no record.
So, let me ask the question, since we're going into this. So, do you feel like that the game is actually won at the very beginning when you're first cast? Because if you think about the things that we've talked about, if you're not a producer's favorite, if you're not privy to the storyline, whatever, it seems to me like if you're not one of those people that they want to invest in from jump, that you're not going to make it to the end no matter what you do.
Well, I'd say that that kind of way of thinking would hold less true in Tim's series, and the only reason why I say that is because it was kind of live. What I noticed, because for example, from my experience watching like Big Brother in like the more recent years on Channel 5, what I noticed was that people that weren't exactly getting a push or airtime, if there was social media traction for them, the kind of production would change and they'd be given a chance.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was pointing to.
I think because of this being pre-recorded, there was that stakeholder of the public wasn't there. So I think the producers had to kind of literally go off what they believed would be the best narrative. Whereas I think in Tim's year, say if someone wasn't getting much of the spotlight, had there been a big like appeal for them, I think the kind of focus of the story may have changed.
Yeah.
Whereas with our series, there wasn't that stakeholder to gain information from.
You see, I think had there been had it been live, they would have had to have made more room for you, because you were getting so much affection from the public when the show was aired. I do think that with like production and the editing and everything, I think like with Survivor, I think they've become masters of their craft. So it's like they kind of know what works. They kind of know like what kind of characters, you know what I mean? So I think as the circle goes on, I think they get better at that kind of that level, you know what I mean? I think they get better at it. So I like the next series is going to be like, as far as castings is concerned, I think they literally get better in their craft as the series goes on, because they learn what works and what doesn't, and like what kind of like what the crowd's into. Like they take all those knocks and they learn from it. I just hope it goes forward in a positive direction. It's like right now, as it comes across to me right now, we're literally going to have to draw blood for the next one to even be exciting. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to have to chop off a limb, or cut some fingers.
I actually think a thing from me reading like a lot of viewers' thoughts on it, I think they felt as if there was quite like too many twists this series.
Yeah.
So I feel like they've almost boxed themselves into a corner where they can't really create more twists than they already have.
Well, see, that was the problem that became with a lot of fans have with Survivor is, you know, if you go back to we've talked about this before, in the very beginning, it was basically based on relationships. If you got a strong alliance, you would follow that to the end. And as the years have passed, over 20 years, they have introduced so many idols, so many new twists. And a lot of the core fans, they hate it because they feel like every time you turn around, there's something else happening and you've gotten away from what the game was actually about from the very beginning. But this took 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, and we've talked about this before, Tim. It's literally went from 0 to 90 in 3 seasons. So it's like, I don't know how much further they can go.
Yeah, I think almost, I guess, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like they saw series 3 as almost like kind of like a new series 1, if that makes sense, because I think
Mhm.
for series 1 and 2, the circle was still quite a niche show, whereas I think they've officially cemented themselves as more mainstream now by getting their own celebrity version of the circle, getting the international versions on Netflix. Like, we only got the US version January 1st this year, so like I think that kind of solidified it as more like a mainstream reality show. And so now I think they're assuming that kind of this is now the kind of new series 1 almost, and they want people to kind of take this as because actually series 3 is always the year where from me looking at most shows, is when shows take off, because I mean, you might not know these people, Elaine, but like for example, in Britain's Got Talent, series 3 was the year with Susan Boyle and Diversity.
Nice.
In X Factor, series 3 was the year with Leona Lewis. In Love Island, series 3 was the year it started to take off and like went like over like 2 million, and then since then it's become like the biggest show, and that had like Chris and Kem, who are like both still famous now. Like, we always see them on all these different shows. And then even The Apprentice, series 3 had Katie Hopkins. Whether you like her or not, she's still someone people know. So like series 3 is always a year where they have like a star that kind of breaks out. And I do feel like with this series, that's kind of Manrika, because people have been saying this series was very much like the Manrika show. And I do feel like this series is very much ended up being, it's weird actually, because when I was there, it actually felt more like the game actually felt like it was more built around Andy, and everyone was kind of branches off him. But for the program, I feel like it's very much Manrika has been the central focus, and everyone's kind of branched off her in some way or another. It's like everyone's relationship with Manrika is their kind of time on the show.
Yes. Well, I think that she's doing what Tim had talked about, and you have talked about earlier, is like playing to the audience and playing to the people. Like, there's several games going on different levels. And honestly, like, if you look at it that way, I know a lot of people don't agree with the things that she's doing, but I think she's been playing an amazing game, and the strategical side of it, like, she's been killing it. And we said it last time. I know she's getting a lot of hate for a lot of stuff, but listen, if you're playing for your family, how can you ever be mad at somebody in a game? Now, if this was real life, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you were cutting people and stabbing people back, I would talk totally different about it. But because it's a game, in the context of that, I would never get mad at somebody for doing what they feels right to better the lives of their people. Like, I would never get mad at them for that.
Also, she inhabits the costumes. I mean, when they gave her that yellow cape, I mean, I just thought this is a cross between Bond villain. I wanted her to be stroking a cat or something at that moment, or either Bond villain or Cruella de Vil. You know, I just thought, just absolutely lovely, and she embodies that part, and she plays it to perfection. I can't think of somebody who could do it better, actually. But Vithun, we've got to tie things up very shortly. But what advice would you?
We've been on here forever. I didn't even notice that.
We have, but you know, when we have lovely, scintillating guests, it just sort of time just pops by. But Vithun, what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to be on the show?
I think I actually mentioned this in the unofficial podcast I did with Seamus.
We're far more unofficial.
But I'll say the same answer. So basically, I would say and it kind of ties into some of the stuff we talked about how I would say to keep in mind that it's a TV show, and you need to kind of have a story that can be told used to entertain the viewers. Because I think the problem when I look back on my time, given that my game was just so analytical, this was one of the things I mentioned actually, was that it was just quite hard to, I thought, maybe you seem to think differently, but I felt as if my game was just not very viewer friendly at all. Because when it came to like rating someone first or second, the only reason was because the math said so. It wasn't because I had any reason to. But obviously for the TV, you have to give reasons. So you say something like, I'm rating this person first because if they're influencer, they will save me, or something like that.
I think you should have stuck to your guns and kept to the maths. You could illustrated it with pictures.
No.
I've seen some pictures.
I didn't have to change my ratings for the TV, but
your reasons.
My reasons, but I didn't. But there was. I feel like there was no other reason other than my formula.
The maths. Yeah, you should have. I think to see mathematics dramatized like that would have been splendid. You shouldn't be afraid of that.
But then the problem is the reasons would have been the same for every person, except it would.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
For Tim, it would be okay. For Tim, it'd been.
It would have been. It would have been gorgeous. It would have been gorgeous.
I think for the audience, they would have found it repetitive because I think the audience were even getting tired with the whole. You know, when we all voted for who was going to be the blocker to block either Dorothy or Tally.
No.
Yes.
People even found that bit.
Oh, I hated that. I hated that. It was like looking at the election of a pope. It just sort of dull. Well, why didn't you have smoke at that point? You could have opened one of the windows and let smoke out.
The only reason why it had to go, it went on for 3 times is because basically it's weird because basically you lock in your answers beforehand.
Yes, I know.
But you see the answers going. So obviously, but that makes it fair though, because it would be unfair if you could change your answers after. So it is for the process of fairness. But it's really frustrating when you've locked in your answer and then you see that like the other person's changed their answer and now your answer is going to be redundant.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, listen,
absolutely.
I literally enjoyed you on the show. I thought when you were totally vulnerable and wearing your heart on the sleeve kind of thing, like that's when I fell in love with you, because that gets me, like I said, in my feels. And I think that it showed a side of you that necessarily like you wasn't prepared to let the world see.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I think they fell in love with you for it, though.
Yeah, I came on imagining to be like so corporate. Like I even remember joking to the producer at one point saying that like I'm probably doing more calculations here than I would in my actual job. But like I literally thought I was gonna come here and like literally be like proper work. I just totally forgot about the cameras at all. Like, and that's why you on so many of the daily drops, even episodes where I've had a big part in the episode, the daily drops I'll like my face won't even appear at all, because obviously the daily drops is like snap kind of energetic parts, and because my character wasn't like that, that's why my kind of personality is not suitable for like snap kind of 2-minute content.
Right.
But so yeah, I didn't even expect to kind of display any personality at all. I just assumed that I was coming here to play the game and let all the interesting people get on screen.
Well, it's crazy how things happen in the turn of events that take place. And I always say you're right where you're supposed to be. And I think you was literally meant to be on that show and show a little bit of piece of Vithun to the world so everybody can fall in love with you. I really think it was supposed to go down like that. Sometimes winning isn't everything. And I learned that from my season of Survivor. I didn't win, but I took so much away from the experience and the journey that I was on. And I have a feeling that you're right there with me and you done the same. So I'm so happy I got to see you on UK, the circle here in the US. I feel like I know you from your vulnerability and coming from a place of, I wasn't the most popular growing up. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I rocked a mullet for 20 years, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't the most popular. I wasn't the best looking. So everything you said just set well with me. And I just want you to know that across the pond, you got a huge supporter here in Old Biscuit. So I'm so glad I got to talk with you and got to see you.
I think I'm also happy that I got to. I felt as if like the most fun bit for me of the whole process was almost my meet. I think, and I think that was because I was so like focused when I was there on the show that I didn't give myself the chance to appreciate me surviving each day. Right. I was so like I only let myself appreciate the fact that I'd survived 2 weeks out of 3 weeks of the whole show. Once I'd got blocked and once I knew it was over. And I think and then I never expected to be like trending after my meet. Right. I feel like usually when you get blocked, people like would forget about you and be like, what's the point talking about him, because he's not going to be there anymore.
But it was so beautiful.
Yeah, I think actually looking through the Twitter, like the Circle's Twitter, I think like that photo of me and Andy seems like it's the most, like, at least in the recent days, it's like the most liked post.
It's the really most genuine thing I've seen.
I think it's just what viewers really kind of tune in for the Circle for those sort of moments.
Yeah, it was a point of contact.
It was so organic in nature as well.
Yep. I loved it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm gonna go back and watch it again. It was so good.
Me too. And also Vithun, you've been a captivating guest today.
Thank you.
It's just a joy having you here. Really, I mean,
crunching numbers like nobody's business, you know.
we may in fact have broken a bit of a record. We have spent quite a lot of time talking maths and giggling about it. I don't know whether that's unusual.
I actually think we had quite a long time like focus on the circle compared to like some of your other podcasts. I think
I say that every time. This time we talked about the circle way more. I say it every time, but I mean it this time.
You've made me quite well behaved, so you should take it. You should take a lot of credit for that. I think
maybe you should be the new co-host and his sidekick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't control the Tim. I just can't. I just let him run amok. I'm a horrible babysitter. I just let him run crazy.
No, before you go, Vithun, can you have the last word? Because Katie Frauen says, hope you have gained more confidence since appearing in the circle. I think it's a statement. Do we want to convert that into a question? Have you?
Yeah, I think so. I would actually say, like, for me, it's almost, I feel like the confidence is almost being gained from getting casted in a way rather than what actually happened on the show. I think it's like because now I'm looking back at the whole experience, I think they actually thought that people wanted to watch me out of like 40,000 people that applied, and they picked me as like one of 15. And I applied on my own accord as well. I wasn't like someone that was approached. And I know that's because actually my producer thought I'd been approached because he'd said that they get such few applicants from like Asian backgrounds that he just assumed that I must have been approached in order to get me on the show, kind of thing. So like, yeah, so I for me to actually just apply on my own accord and get on like what is now quite a mainstream show in the UK, and also be starting lineup. I think for me, I think I take a lot of confidence from that, and also just I guess the reception, the fact I didn't expect people to like me. I always feel like I'm one of the most kind of talked about people that like never like rated in the top 2.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like, listen, you should draw huge confidence from the fact that, you know, people across the world, you know, they resonate with you and they loved your vulnerability, and being unique and different is actually super special. And I hold it on a pedestal. So you should take huge confidence from that, because you are just, you are one of a kind, sir. And it was a joy to watch you on my TV, like I said. And I hope you take a lot of confidence from all of that, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's tie up. We're back, I hope, on Saturday with 2 guests, and
that's going to be like herding cats. 2 guests.
It's going to be really difficult, squashing us all in. It's going to look like an Italian movie from the 1960s.
The Brady Bunch. The Brady
Bunch. we'll have to be color coded in green and red and pink and yellow and all these things. Now, Vithun, where can we find you on social media? Because I'm sure we do want to.
Yeah, so I have my Instagram handle's just there, like on the screen. So if they're watching the screen,
I'm gonna look you up.
Yeah, so it's just Vithun Illankovan. So it's literally just my name and surname on it.
There we are.
Yeah. And if you want my Twitter, you just need to take off the hun at the end of my first name, and then you'll get my Twitter.
Right. Okay. Lovely. I'm only just discovering Twitter, really. And Elaine, how do we?
I actually always used. For me, I find Twitter like the easiest one to use, just because like as soon as I have a thought. I mean, in some ways, it's almost the most dangerous, because you can just have a thought and then like in 2 seconds you can post that thought.
Yeah,
there's not much effort that has to go into posting your.
Can't you do the same thing on Instagram?
You can. It's just a little different.
There's just a lot more thought, because you have to make a picture for like. It's not like you can just type and send. So Twitter is almost like you sending a text message to the world, really.
Oh yes, of course you have to have a picture, don't you? But I think in pictures, so it's much easier for me with Instagram.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm a little backwards from Vithun. I do the Instagram more than I do Twitter, because not too many thoughts roll out of this head at one time. So I'm not very good at tweeting, but I do have a Twitter and the Instagram. Both are the same. It's at Elaine Stott 32. If you holler at me, I holler at you. Reach out anytime. I always talk to all of my fans. So.
And I'm in Instagram, I'm Professor_Tim_Wilson. And in Twitter, I think I'm Prof_Tim_Wilson. Is that right? I think that's right.
I
Anyway,
think
You got to
Yeah.
thank for underscores. I don't.
I just I much prefer a hyphen, but I didn't really know what an underscore was. I just thought there was somebody who couldn't draw a straight line.
Do social media allow hyphens? I feel like they might. I have a feeling that you don't have hyphens in.
I don't
handles.
think they like it. I don't think they
Yeah.
like it. So I think that's why we end up with the underscore is default. It's so horrible, and you have to do strange things with your computer to get the underscore.
I find it
must be
frustrating when
other
people have like two. Sometimes they have like someone will put like two underscores in a row, and I'm trying to search for the handle and I can't work out why it's not working. And
Yeah.
they put like two underscores next to each other.
Yeah,
That's
there's a science to all of it. That's for sure.
Okay, we better wrap up, and as I say, we will see you on Saturday, and otherwise, look at the circle this evening, see what goes on, and we'll and we look forward to any comments.
Yeah,
So,
I look forward to watching your podcast on Saturday.
Oh, I've got to end the broadcast. I have to press one of these.
Yeah.
I know. It's not my job. I've got to deal with the strange system technology.
Listen at them every time.